Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Now, our first special guest is making his return to Happy Horror Time 2.5 years after he came on the show to talk about his holiday horror parody, The Mean One. Well, he's back with a new horror comedy based on everyone's favorite whistling boat mouse, Steamboat Willie. It's called Screamboat, and it just premiered in theaters last month and is now available to rent on VOD or to buy on DVD or Blu-ray. But this time he's not alone, as he is joined by the producer of Screamboat, who also played Amber in the film, along with the star who plays Selena. So basically it's just one big Screamboat love fest today. Please welcome to the podcast Screamboat's director and co-writer, Steven LaMorte, along with producer and star Amy Schumacher and star Allison Pittel. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how is everyone doing today? Everyone's going to talk at once. Go.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
First off, congrats to all of you on the release of this film and all the incredible press that you guys have been getting. Like we've been seeing, it's just really awesome to see this kind of press going for this film. And welcome back, Steven. Hope you've been well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again. I was waiting. I said, when we do the podcast before the movie comes out, it's like we can't really get into the nitty gritty because you don't want to talk about the movie or spoil it for people. So I was excited to talk to you after you'd seen it because I had so much fun chatting with you about The Mean One.
Yeah, well, thank you. So look, since we got a chance to talk about Steven's background back in episode 131, if you can believe it, we're on like 250 something. That's how long we've been doing this. But we got all of Steven's background in that episode. So we are going to start with Amy this time. And what I wanted to know, Amy, is like, where are you from originally and how did you first get involved with, or what first got you interested in the film industry?
I am originally from Seattle, but I've been in Los Angeles for about 12 years, and I've been an actor for a long time, actor and stunt performer. And I started by producing theater and like murder mystery dinner theater shows and stuff like that. So when I moved to LA, I started producing my own sketch comedy and little short films and series. And that's actually how we met on one of my short films, a sword fighting short film called Trials of Ember.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. But I'm an actor first and then producer second.
Okay.
And same question for you, Allison.
Where are you from?
I'm also from Seattle. No, I'm not. I am from Michigan originally. I moved to New York it's been a while. And then I literally just moved to LA 2 months ago. So kind of bounce around a lot. And I got into acting. I did a conservatory out in New York called the Neighborhood Playhouse. And after that, sort of started doing indie, auditioning for indie films and got connected with Fuzz on the Lens, who's one of the producers for Screamboat. And that's how I ended up connecting with this beautiful team here.
That's awesome. And Steven, Amy kind of alluded to it, but we're going to ask you in more detail because what our listeners may not know is that you and Amy aren't just partners in filmmaking, you're partners in life. You have been married for over 2 years now, is it right?
Yes, 2 years, yes.
Like 2 days ago.
Yeah, we just had our 2-year wedding anniversary. That's right.
Well, you heard it here. Happy Horror Time, 2-year anniversary. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
But so I've got to know, like you mentioned a little bit. So how did the two of you meet, and did you immediately bond over your love for film, or like what was the initial connection?
He asked me, so I have to tell it. I got to tell it my way. It's always interesting when you're a director and you're brought onto a project that is someone else's baby, and you have to kind of help take it off the page and translate what it is that they're doing. And after we had made the film, Amy and I worked together, and our first date is technically a wardrobe fitting at Ross Dress for Less. Like I have the photos. I'm like, oh, that's the day we met. Oh, we'll always have Ross. But we, it's the kind of thing where you're collaborating, you're working together. And I've always wanted to make a sword fighting movie. And she's been a sword fighter for, at that point, a while. You had been sword fighting. And something about watching her dual wield cutlass swords and cutting up bad guys, like just connected with me. And then we made the movie, we finished the movie, we take it to festivals, and we're going to festivals and we're showing the movie, and we're sitting in these groups, and every time you show a movie, less and less friends show up. And so as the movie was going on, we're going to these conventions and these festivals, and less people are sitting in the room, and we find ourselves sitting next to each other over and over and over again. And we're like, wait a minute, is it watching the movie that's fun, or is it spending time together? So it turned out that it was spending time together was the thing that we really enjoyed. And so we made another movie together, and we made a relationship together, and now we're married. So I used to think the director was in charge before, because she was the producer and I was the director, and my opinion has evolved on that since we've gotten married. And now I think the producer is in charge, second only to the star. Unless it's a producer star, then both of them are in charge. And so, did I get that right?
Very good. Yes, very good.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
good.
No, that is so great. But Amy, we are going to give you a chance to chime in, because we did see on your IMDb profile. Now, it's funny, last time we talked to Steven about random facts on his IMDb profile. And sometimes when we talk to people about it, they're like, is that on my profile? But in yours, it says you, quote, can be seen around LA performing improv, hosting, or wielding a sword. So obviously I'm seeing a theme here, and I wanted to ask you about that part. The wielding a sword, like, how did you get into sword fighting? I even feel funny saying that. But like, and are you wielding a sword right now?
I'm not, but I do own many. I have always since I was a little kid, wanted to be like a stunt performer. My very first dream was to be an American Ninja Warrior. Do you remember that show?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's still
I had a whole
right?
persona. Her name was Flames. It was a whole thing. So then, I just have been doing stunt stuff, and in my grad school program, we had to do, stunt training and acrobatics and tumbling, stuff like that. But I always just gravitated toward the sword stuff more. And so when I came out to LA, I found a community out here and started taking classes more consistently. And we've made Star Wars parody movies with lightsabers. We've made, this sword fighting film we were just talking about. So I don't know. It's just so fun. It feels like powerful.
I'd be terrible at it. I just know it. I just can't imagine.
It's so cool.
But so last time Steve was here, he told us what movies had an impact on him. So Allison and Amy, which horror films, if any, had any impact on you?
Yeah, did you watch horror growing up? Was it a thing for you? And if it was there any film that stands out when you were a kid that really stuck with you through the years?
Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah, I know.
Right, yeah, obviously Jason Takes Manhattan.
Yeah, because Steven said, and I remember this specifically, he was very much into the creature horror films. I think you said Gremlins, and I even think you said Terminator and Alien and things like that. So
yeah,
Allison, was horror on your radar, and did any stick with you?
I'll go. I did grow up watching horror. I had an uncle who is absolutely obsessed with horror. And so he was showing us Children of the Corn and movies like that when we were way too young to be watching stuff like that. So I definitely grew up watching that, and movies like Jaws and Jurassic Park are absolutely part of my childhood. I think Jurassic Park was the very first movie I saw in a movie theater.
Good one. That's a great one.
Right? I think maybe a little too young to even be I don't know. That movie's for everybody. I like more gentle kind of horror, like Zombieland, Cabin in the Woods, silly fun horror is sort of my thing, versus straight slasher. Yeah, Gremlins. Those movies were all part of my childhood for sure.
Allison, was horror part of your childhood at all?
Yeah. So my birthday's November 1st. So I grew up with themed Halloween birthdays every year. And because we were I think Goosebumps was the first series I really fell in love with. I also love reading. I love Stephen King. And I especially love Stephen King, I think, because he blends emotional, sort of character-driven stories with horror. It's not so much about the horror. The horror is sort of secondary, and it's really driven by the relationships. But I was huge into horror very, very, very young. And because my parents were, they didn't want us watching rated R movies, and most horror is rated R. They stuck to the black and whites because they basically are rated R, but because they're so old, it didn't seem as offensive. I think Psycho's rated R because her belly button shows, and that for the day was very scandalous. So we grew up watching all the old black and whites, The Birds, House on Haunted Hill, House of Wax, like those old black and whites until we were old enough to I think we were it was pretty strict with the, the age thing. So at PG-13, we weren't allowed to really watch PG-13 until we were 13. So I didn't see Hocus Pocus. I was 13 or 14. That's a PG-13 movie. But yeah, I have a very, I love horror, all things horror. I'm also kind of, to Amy's point, I like a story that's got I love Hereditary because it's about grief and it's so well performed and it has so much heart. And those are the horror that I love. Jaws as well, because it's just such a splashy, like insane character study that you're like, oh man, this is horror, but it's really like you're really rooting for the people in it too.
I thought you were going to say we're rooting for the shark.
We're rooting for the shark too. And it's kind of cute.
I just like that you said splashy when you're talking about
Jaws. Exactly. Literally.
First off, can I say so my birthday, Allison, is November 6th. And growing up being so into horror and Halloween, I was like, why couldn't my mom have just had me 6 days earlier so I could have been a Halloween baby? But I can't even imagine if you were like that close. Were you like the morning of November 1st or like afternoon?
The morning, almost midnight. I think my mother went into labor on Halloween, and I saw a very, very early November 1st.
Wow!
You should have you couldn't have like the doctor just like nudge, like fudge the fudge the paperwork. Like really,
that's so true. It's like who would really be? Yeah, that's crazy. So. Before we jump into Screamboat, Allison, we wanted to ask you about working on the 2024 horror movie Scream, because now this horror film has so many like icons in it, and your scene in particular during the end credits features Terry Kaiser, Bill Moseley, and Tim Curry. So I have to ask, like as horror nerds, what was it like filming that scene with all of these horror greats? And I have to know, was it really Tim Curry under that mask in your scene?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say.
Oh, damn it.
If you even know, Allison, you might not even know.
True. I never saw the man behind the mask, to be quite honest. They're incredible. It was so much fun working with them. They're such giving performers. And with a lot of shooting the way that Stream is shot and somewhat Screamboat, you're kind of acting against the monster that isn't quite there yet. It's sort of going to be inserted later. So it's really, really great to have incredible, talented actors around you that are giving you that energy. And they're just you get really nervous working with them because that was my first like real big feature in a sense, like and working with actors that have these credits and you're like, oh my God. But they were pretty complimentary. So that was nice. And it was really a lot of fun to just watch them work and like see how expressive and emotive they are and just feel sort of that energy coming through. And it was an amazing time.
I would have been so starstruck by Terry Kaiser because he's in Friday 13th Part 7, The New Blood, and he's in Mannequin 2.
Mannequin 2.
I love Mannequin 2.
Mannequin 2. No, but I mean, it was just, I remember as we were doing research for this interview, we were looking up, all of you and your past, and we're like, okay, she was in Scream. First off, David Howard Thornton's in that also from Screamboat. But then we're like, I remember being like, okay, so where is she? Like, we're watching the movie, like, where is she? And then there's this, and I'm also wondering, where's Terry Kaiser? Where's Tim Curry? And then, like, you guys are all in it together, and I'm like, wow, you hit the jackpot.
Was
in that
a
scene.
real working movie theater?
It is. So we had to like get the fuck out of there. Our schedule was pretty intense. We kind of started setting up as soon as the last showing was at that particular theater, and people were walking out of there kind of like, what's going on here? And then the whole front of that theater is a window and glass doors. So the sun happened to be, that's where the sun rises. So we were really racing against sunlight pretty hardcore for the entire shoot. But yeah, it's a working theater on Staten Island. It's very like old school. It hasn't really been renovated in the best way. So it has that super cool vintage look. And yeah, I think, Staten Island's such a big fan of Fuzz on the Lens, who also produced Stream. So I think they probably knew the owner, and it was, but yeah, it's working theater.
Perfect.
That's my childhood theater is the theater they show.
Oh my God.
How cool is
Okay,
that?
well, this is the perfect transition because we're going to now move into Screamboat. Now, first off, listeners, if you have ever listened to any of our interviews, you know we like to talk details with people, so there will be spoilers included. So if you have not seen Screamboat yet and you don't want anything spoiled, you may want to pause the interview right now, go check it out on VOD, or you can buy the Blu-ray or DVD, and then come back after that, because we are going to talk about some specific kills and scenes, and we don't want to spoil it for you. So that is your spoiler alert. Steven, so I remember that you're originally from Staten Island, which means you probably rode the Staten Island ferry all the time. So what I wanted to know is, did the idea for Screamboat come from that, or did it come from first finding out about Steamboat Willie entering the public domain? Like, tell us the whole Screamboat origin story.
It all started on the Staten Island ferry. I'm from Staten Island, but I went to college in Manhattan. When you're on Staten Island, nowadays, I don't know if you would let a child ride the Staten Island ferry alone, but when I was in high school, I was making sketches and shooting videos with Mike Levy, Jason Levy, Steve De La Sala. We were riding the ferry back and forth, shooting sketches on the ferry even then. And then once I went to college, I would be taking the boat late night, coming back from the library. I was at the library very late, and I would be coming home on the ferry from a late night, Saturday night library reading session. And so I'd be coming back, and I would just remember thinking just how creepy the boat was really late at night, because they switched to a much smaller ferry. The ferry changes based on who's on it. So during the day and first thing in the morning, it's quiet and it's packed and you're elbow to elbow with people. In the afternoon, it's tourists, and they switch to a cleaner boat, and it's more spaced out because most people are outside checking the sights. But late at night, after all the tourists and commuters are done, back then they only ran once an hour, and they switched to a tiny little boat, the Alice Austin. So the room just fills for an hour with nut jobs and commuters, people coming in, people going out, and they're all packed in this terminal. And then everyone has to run for the boat, because if you miss it, you're going to wait an hour at 2:00 in the morning. And then you're jammed in on this weird little boat with all these crazy people. And as soon as it takes off, that's 22 minutes of terror right there. There's no getting off. On the Orient Express, just get off the damn train, tuck and roll. If it's a bus, stop it. The boat, you got nothing. And you're certainly not going in the New York City harbor. So I've always wanted to make a horror movie, a slasher, a murder mystery, something on the Staten Island ferry. So after we did the Mean One, and we were looking at what our next project was going to be, I was trying to find a character that we wanted to adapt or something we wanted to change and tweak. And I kept hitting a creative wall. And Amy very brilliantly said, well, why don't you start with a story you already have in you? Let's not try to force a square peg into a round hole. Is there a movie you've always wanted to make? I'm like, well, I always wanted to make a Staten Island ferry horror movie. So maybe we start there. And then I started looking into what was in the public domain. Nothing new was coming out that year, but next year, Steamboat Willie was going to become available. And I said, oh my God, the Staten Island ferry could be our steamboat. And I did a little bit of research, and I found out the Staten Island ferries were steamboats up until very recently. And I'm like, oh my God, we're going to do Steamboat Willie, and he's going to be on a Staten Island ferry.
And in your real life, Steven, have you seen on the Staten Island ferry was there any
what's the craziest thing that you've ever seen?
You were at 2:00 in the morning or at 12:00 in the afternoon?
The craziest thing I've seen, probably the most preposterous thing I've ever seen was I once watched a family of birds commute into Manhattan. It's not anything particularly salacious. I've seen salacious stuff because back then you could only drink on the ferry. You couldn't get a beer before or booze before you got on the boat. So back then everyone would run to get on the boat. They'd wait 10 minutes in line on a 28-minute boat ride. And then you'd get your beer and you'd hear the announcement, the ferry will be docking shortly. And everyone would shotgun their drinks and try to get out. But yeah, I once saw a family of birds. They flew on, they stood on the boat, 20 minutes, they're just click-clacking around. And then once the boat landed, they flew off. I assume they're commuting to work or something. It was crazy.
Wow, they know.
That's hilarious. They're like, hey, we got to catch that morning ferry. Get in there.
Right. We got to catch the morning ferry. All the good statues are waiting for us to poop on them.
Wow. So, Amy, I read on IMDb trivia that the Staten Island ferry boat that you guys filmed in is the same one that was purchased by SNL alums Colin Jost and Pete Davidson. First off, is that true? And secondly, how do you arrange shooting on a Staten Island ferry boat? Like, does it have to not be running at the time? Do you have to only film during certain hours?
The ability to shoot on the boat was a huge part of being able to make this movie in general. So I think contractually, we're not allowed to confirm or deny that SNL factoid.
That's very Googleable fact.
But I think you know the answer.
Okay, good. Okay.
And so, once we realized maybe that was potentially an option, and because these Staten Island guys are all so intertwined, and somebody knows somebody or is related to somebody, they all went to high school together, whatever it is, we were able to trickle down to get to the right people to discuss being on the ferry, because we spoke to the Department of Transportation. You can film on a Staten Island ferry, but you have to get off on each side. So you can only film for the time, like the 28 minutes, then you have to bring all your gear off, and get back on. So it would be impossible to shoot our movie. While we did shoot on the active working ferry, like Allison has a scene that when they're on the back of the boat and the city is pulling away from them, some of that stuff really was shot on the active ferry. But then because we had access to a decommissioned ferry is the only reason why we were able to make this movie in the way that we were, because we were able to shoot overnight on the roof when it's dark. We were there all day. We had access to it coming and going. It, of course, had a million different challenges we could not have even predicted. But, to get someone to green light us shooting on this boat, then to get the ferry yard, the boatyard people to agree to it and let us through security, and then get people from Manhattan to Staten Island, from the Staten Island ferry to the shipyard, through security onto this boat. Like, it was a thing. For sure. Does it have electricity? Can it have running water? Like, all of those things were steps we definitely had to take, but it was only possible because we had a decommissioned ferry that we shot on it for 20 days?
25 days.
22 days, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, the Staten Island community is so supportive. Some parts of the country are not super stoked about having films shot there. And Manhattan, New York City is very film friendly, but it's a big, busy city and everyone's doing their own thing. Staten Island as a community is so supportive of independent filmmakers and artists coming in and creating things. I mean, you wouldn't have Terrifier, you wouldn't have Stream, you wouldn't have Screamboat if you didn't have a lot of really cool Staten Island locals and business owners and even people in the administration, politicians and stuff who want to see independent flicks get made, because Staten Island gets a bad reputation sometimes for really silly reasons. And a lot of awesome people that came together on Staten Island to help make this film happen. And I don't know anyone with a studio budget or a bigger movie or what have you. I mean, even that new, what is it? The Nunnas movie?
It's called Nunnas, isn't it?
Yeah, the new Vince Vaughn
movie.
They have less ferry shots than us because Staten Island got behind us, and that's a Netflix Vince Vaughn movie. So, I mean, we're really grateful to be from Staten Island, and that community would come together. And for whatever reason, psychos like us and Damien Leone are from Staten Island and not afraid to go back and keep shooting there.
But we also shot overnight one day, right, in the terminal on the Manhattan side. And because, it's that same New York camaraderie, but because the guys, same thing is we were there overnight. So we got there at, 11 p.m. and shot through the entire night. So if you want to talk about seeing some weird shit, in a terminal, that day was weird. But, you're supposed to come and go because once it hits 2 a.m., every 45 minutes or an hour or something, they clear it, do a security sweep and start again. But after the second time we had done it, the cleaner and security guard people were like, okay, we're going to clear it now. So go get that shot because no one's going to be in. And they started helping us out and really wanting us to succeed, which was really cool.
Wow,
That's so nice.
I know. Well, okay, my family lives in New York, but I'm not from New York, but they all live in Manhattan. I'm not very familiar with Staten Island other than like, the kind of jokes that people make, which feels so unfair. Now I'm hearing all these things. It sounds like there's a lot of pride coming from Staten Island, and I think that's awesome. Like that's really cool that they're so supportive of the filming. And these are the things like I love to hear in these interviews.
I mean, my only introduction to the Staten Island ferry is when the 4 girls from Sex and the City were on the ferry.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
We're the only movie to have ever shot a complete feature on a Staten Island ferry. The only film ever.
Wow.
It's
See,
so
get
cool.
that on your IMDb, okay? Get that on
Right,
your IMDb
yeah.
trivia. Yeah. No, but that's really cool. Like, I love those facts. So, Allison, what was the audition process like for Selena, who's, kind of the more responsible final girl type of character? And also, what were your thoughts when you first found out that this was going to be a horror movie based on Steamboat Willie?
I have heard about this being made. I think there was an article that had come up with like CNN, somewhere like that. And then of course I heard a little bit because I'm friendly with Fuzz on the Lens, who produced it. I've sort of kept in touch with them, and we have a very close friendship with a lot of those guys. So I had heard about that, and I was like, okay, I don't know what I thought about. I do remember reading the sides and being like, how are they going to get this? So the sides for the audition was the scene where I discover the mouths for the first time. And I thought it was going to be like I was like, this is weird. Like, how are they going to do this? Are they going to put a guy in a mouse costume? But then I talk about how he's like big, but not that big. And I'm like, who is short enough to do this? So it was a delightful surprise to learn about how that was all going to come together with the puppet and with that sort of forced perspective. It was the audition was, there's a couple scenes that were picked, and it was, I think a few weeks went by and I got a call from Mike, one of the producers, and he was like, hey, like, what are you up to? Can you come to Staten Island and do a chemistry read? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, what is this for? He's like, oh, remember that movie that you auditioned for a couple weeks ago? So I went to Staten Island and met Steven and Amy in person, and we worked on a couple of the scenes together on the actual boat. At that time, they had access to it already. And it just was a great fit. And we sort of moved forward from there and just sort of launched right into it.
Awesome.
And Amy, what attracted you to Amber the EMT?
I have, luckily enough, I was part of I'm not on the writing team, but I've read every iteration of the script. And when we're developing it, we knew that one of the things he wants to direct and I want to be in it. And so Amber was to some extent designed around me playing it. I was always the one playing Amber. So as each script came through, I would get to read it and read her arc. And, some of the first drafts of the movie are nowhere near like what we ended up, being the final draft and what we shot. And I think it was fun to get to see with each iteration how the character was getting developed and how she was expanding and who she was going to be within this like little trio, because Allison's character, Selena, and then Pete, played by Jesse Posey, we're a little trio, a little team. And so each of us have, very distinct personality. And I think that was something that was really important to all of us when we were writing, is that we wanted every character to feel like a full rounded human, with a little bit of an arc and something to play or something to say. And so she's super fun to play. I did as much research as I could on what EMTs, do actually on their day-to-day basis, and funnily, like what they're allowed to do, because EMTs actually don't have permission to really administer much, like at least off-duty ones, or the one type of EMT, the type of EMT I was playing, like, they don't have medicine with them. If you're off-duty, like you can't do a lot of stuff. So that was a fun challenge.
Yeah.
Because she couldn't give you aspirin. Like she can only
No.
recommend you need electrolytes. And we're reading the script. So that's why it's like a joke that keeps coming up that she really can't administer any medical aid whatsoever.
We wanted it to be accurate. So we spoke with an EMT, we spoke with a like ambulance technician and a few other different people to ask like, what would I have in my bag if you were, you know, under duress? What can I actually legally be able to do? And it wasn't much.
Extremely limited.
I love
Yeah.
that you did that though, that you cared enough about being, you know, accurate to EMTs that you actually looked that up and tried to be. You
I
know
mean,
what
that makes sense though, because if you give someone aspirin and then they die, you're like, oops, I killed someone.
That's right. Yeah. I know nothing about you or your allergies or what's happening to your body, but here, I think maybe try this.
Yeah. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
So, Steven, your last film, The Mean One, was a parody of an existing character, while this film is working off a character that's now in the public domain. So what I wanted to know is it a lot easier doing a film based off a public domain character, or are there still legal constraints that make it just as difficult as parody?
It's easier and it's more because you can say a lot of the things people know, and it's also more difficult because you don't have access to everything. So with parody, you have access to nothing. It's almost easier. Never say the G word. You can't use this song. You can't use this. You can't use that. It's all homage. And then the challenge kind of in both sides, the challenge is how can you be, thankfully with a comedy, clever or funny to still do or insinuate the things that maybe you're not allowed to touch. With the public domain, it's awesome because we can say he's Steamboat Willie. You know it. I know it. We know it. We have access to his backstory. We have access to supporting characters. We could use the actual footage. Fantastic. But the downside is because this character has evolved, Mickey Mouse is not in the public domain. Some cartoons of Steamboat Willie that came out 2 years after are not in the public domain. So you have to, it's like a tease because we can say Steamboat Willie, but he's not Mickey Mouse. He can whistle, but he can't speak. So it is easier, I think, but it's also mildly more challenging because you're like, oh, I wanted to do this thing. Nope, that was 1955. That's not cleared yet. So that does present some interesting challenges, and but then it's like anything. I think with anytime we can do comedy, you run into a situation. There's no horses. Great, let's make a joke out of it. Let's not look at it as a limitation because it's a comedy. So. It has its pluses and its minuses for sure.
No, that totally makes sense.
I think that's funny. I mean, like just the whole thing, like because
play
all the
around the
hurdles,
rules. Yeah.
there's so many hurdles. It's funny to see.
And it's also like, I find that, like, I would find that in your shoes, like a fun challenge. Like, how am I going to work around this? Like, work this in so that it's legally okay, but I'm only pulling from this. But at the same time, I can see it also being very frustrating at times.
But, you know, the parameters to some extent, I think, help because this is what we're allowed to do. If we're allowed to do everything, then it's like, how do you choose? Then it expands and doesn't have maybe as much focus of like you're frozen in the decision-making process. Here, we're like, well, he has to wear his hat. He has to be black and white. He has to be these things. So now let's work from that. It like gave us a starting point.
Yeah.
And, some people have this opinion that they think without seeing the movie that we don't like these characters or that we want to ruin them or we don't care about them. And it's the opposite. We love this character. We love the brand and we love the themes and things. So for us, being forced to stay true to the IP is actually not only a legal thing, but it's also a creative thing. We don't want to do Michael Myers knockoff with Mickey Mouse face. We want to do Steamboat Willie and adapt him into a horror character. So all of the being committed to certain cartoons and certain elements that are in the public domain actually helped us to be true to the character. And I think people that have seen the film are like, oh, it is a love letter to Disney. Oh, they really did their homework. And we're like, yeah, you can't just switch out Steamboat Willie for a killer mouse or a killer weasel or something like that. Like he has to be Steamboat Willie or this movie doesn't exist. And so it definitely helped us like, well, you have to go back to the cartoon to make sure it's okay. So it helped us to sort of stay focused on our source material and not deviate too far just because we wanted to do something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, now, in terms of casting, the great David Howard Thornton plays Steamboat Willie. And now, of course, listeners will definitely know him as Art the Clown from the Terrifier movies, and he also played the mean one in your last film. Now, Amy, I heard you and Steven mention in another podcast that David was signed on to play this part before a script was even written, which is amazing. What do you think David brings to a character like this that makes his performance so effective?
I think we knew right away that we wanted David to play this character. So when we spoke with him, even that when the idea was just percolating, he was so excited. He had a history with playing this character, but we knew David has a really special skill that's, I think something super unique to him, that he can put the prosthetics on, he can put the makeup on and put all the stuff on, but still emote through it. And so we knew when we wanted to design this character that we wanted it to be able to not be like a static mask. We wanted his face to be able to move. We wanted him to be able to emote and use his body and his physicality to create the character. And it's really hard to do, sitting in prosthetic makeup for hours and then getting up and putting on this big suit and then bringing all of your energy to the performance is not something that should be taken lightly. Like, it's a genuine skill. I don't know how he wasn't so incredibly claustrophobic. I mean, since we have some spoilers, like at one point, the character's eye is covered. He's like locked into the ear part of the costume. He can't take it off all day once it's on. And he's in this big suit. He had ice vests underneath the first suit, and we would just rotate out the blocks of ice so to keep him cool. And yet he can still emote and be charming and silly and goofy. And the next level of that is that he did his homework. He went and watched all kinds of the resources that he could possibly find to see what would his giggle be like, what would his movements be like. And he was finding some of it once he was in the costume. But it takes a performer like David to be able to do that.
Wow. No, that's a great answer. And Steven, the character of Willie is meant to be the size of a mouse, not human size. So obviously you had to play around with perspectives a bunch. What techniques did you use to make David appear as if he was much smaller than he is?
We used every trick in the book. Literally, I have an actual book that says special effects on it. It's a coffee table book. And I've had, it starts with like the Méliès brothers and like magicians in the late 1800s. And then it goes all the way up to like stagecraft. And it wasn't virtual production at the time. It was, I think went up to like just before Avatar or something. So I literally have like visual effects Bible. I've been a huge, I wanted to be a magician first, then I wanted to be an Imagineer. And I don't think I'll ever be allowed to be an Imagineer now. But the magic I can recreate that I'm allowed to do, I think, is in movies. So we knew early on that we wanted to make him small. And everyone was like, are you sure? Because if he's in a suit, he can just stand there. And if he's not in a suit, then we have to shoot background elements. And we need special lenses and special lights and special actors and all of this crazy stuff. But we knew if we wanted to do it, he had to be small. So the reference size for the mouse that I sent to everyone is actually the statue partners at the very front of the castle in Disney. So it's where Walt Disney is standing and he's got Mickey Mouse next to him. So that's the actual scale that we went with. We're like, okay, this is the size where he's not so small and he's like a leprechaun. And he's not so big that why bother? He could be a child or something. And then we used everything from modern filmmaking techniques. We used some green screen. We used LED walls like they use for Mandalorian. But with the LED walls, what we did a little different is instead of creating 3D sets, everything that's in the movie was shot. So there's no computer generated stuff, except for one shot has a 3D thing. But otherwise, every single thing was filmed. So we have these shots where you have you'll have characters in the background that are moving, plates that we shot, and then Willie is standing in the foreground, and so there's giant legs behind him, or the camera is impossibly low to the ground and he's on the back deck of the boat, and then it all looks believable because he's furry, so there's no green edge weirdness because he's really standing on the boat and the camera is really 6 inches off the ground or 10 inches off the ground. And then we also have a puppet that's like David's stand-in that we use to interact with the actors and let them sort of fight and wrestle with it. This is like a traditional Bunraku puppet. So it's like a version of Willie that looks just like David to his proportions and size, but it's got rods in it. So the puppet can like walk around and move. We have a biting hand puppet that's meant for swimming and just from the wrist up. And then we have oversized props. So we'll have like a regular sized, like a machete that the puppet holds. That's the correct scale. And then we built a giant sword looking machete that's David's size because everything he wields has to be twice as big. Then we have, what else did we do? Oh my God. We did some forced perspective where there's a scene where a captain has a dust up with the mouse. And so for those shots, some shots are the captain or the stunt. No, he did all of his own stunts. The captain and the puppet wrestling with each other. And then some shots are the puppet and like a corpse that is getting mutilated. And then there's other shots where you have David is in the suit. You have the LED wall behind him showing the footage of the ferry blown up. Then you have the captain all the way 20 or 30 feet close to the camera in forced perspective, covered in blood. He's choking and moving in sync with David, who has a giant cable 20 or 30 feet back, and they're both moving like they're both killing each other together in real. It's like nuts. But when it all comes together, this jigsaw puzzle, hopefully you just watch it and think, oh, he's funny or oh, he's silly, and not, I just watched 14 magic tricks in a row, back to back to back. You're just hopefully laughing and having a good time.
I can't even, jeez.
I mean, it's so much movie making.
Yeah, the amount of thought going into that, because it's like, talk about another hurdle of having to deal with the perspectives, with the size. And I wanted to know from an actor standpoint, Allison, like, did you get to interact much with David during your fight scenes, or were you interacting with the puppet more, or how were you interacting with the mouse in your scenes?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, didn't really interact with David much at all. The finale sort of on the roof, that was the puppet. And, we got really lucky with the team that created those puppets. They're super, super talented. And they had created, like Steven was saying, like a multitude of different puppets or mannequins or, sort of stand-ins for David, depending on the scene. So there was, I think, a memory that really sticks out was when I see the mouse. I think it's later on and he's very close to me and I scream in his face and he has sort of this like this gift that he gives me. That was Christian, one of the puppeteers who created him. He's like crouched behind the stairs of this, like the bowels of the ship in this like tiny space with the manipulating the mouse. So, and his legs are probably aching. And then his teammate is standing sort of in an awkward position. And, the dedication those guys had to really, even though they're not on screen, they're also performing and really giving life to the puppet version of David, who you see his legs at some point, and all that sort of that texture really added to it. But I have had the pleasure of working with David in person on other projects. So I know the level of talent and skill that he brings. And we also have become friends over the years. So it was really, really fun to see, him after everything was said and done, like watching it for the first time and watching what he brings to the table, just having that relationship prior it really did help because he's just so talented of a person. But yeah, it was a huge team effort with the mouse and bringing him to life.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like David had to film most of his scenes on his own then, and then you just kind of spliced them in. Is that correct, Steven? Like, I mean, because of the
well, sort of. Yes and no. I mean, we shot the bulk of the film on Staten Island on our decommissioned ferry, and David came to the set. And David worked with me in rehearsal and prepping, and he would come to the set. And aside from his scale being incorrect, we went to all of the locations where we're filming, and he sort of mimed out what he thought he would do, or here's where it would be set. And some of it's tricky because he's not the size of Willie. But his performance there informed what we were going to do. His casting informed the writing of the script. Then his performance in the rehearsal stage, coming to the boat and working it through with us, informed the way the puppeteers were going to play the puppet elements. Then we shot a bulk of the movie on the boat. be it the static one or the moving one. Then we went to the soundstage and we shot additional elements with the cast. Amy did her portion where she goes toe to toe with the mouse with David for sure. Plenty of scenes were shot with him there. And then we did additional pickups with the puppet again, where we're like, okay, we need this other element that's missing, but we've already shot David's pieces here. And so we need something only the puppet can do to film this other little pickup. So it has to be, it's something that Fuzz in the Lens does really well. And you can see it in the Terrifier movies. We know there are some really big production companies where folks you've heard of whose movies I love, who they do not do pickups. They won't go and they shoot no additional footage. So you have to make the movie work. And when you're doing like gore gags and creature work, sometimes it's not that the thing doesn't work or the planning doesn't work out, but it's in camera and you can really only get what this thing does. And then once you start cutting it together, you're like, oh, it would be really helpful if we had this one shot or that one shot or an insert of, maybe it's not even the blood, but a reaction, or, maybe it's, we need to see the props not moving enough. So we need an insert of the human element moving to tie it all together, whatever it is. And having that understanding of the way to shoot the gore and that sort of that methodology of we shoot on set, we rehearse, and then we shoot on set, and then we go and we shoot the creature, and then we go back to set, and then we use the puppet, allowed us to make this seamless integration, because it's physically impossible to get it all right in the first try, no matter how much you prep it. Like gravity and physics, the blood goes where it's going to go, or the puppet moves. I mean, we even had a moment where we had tested the puppet walking, and it was just like Jaws, because then they're like, oh, the ground's supposed to be wet. So then we did it. And so then we went to roll, and the puppet's feet kept getting stuck on the ground. And we're like, oh my God, we didn't test the shark in salt water. What have we done? So you just have these, it's the practical filmmaking has something very real and very cool about it, but it also does require a certain amount of trial and error. And our crew is so awesome. They had just come off of Terrifier 3. So when we're going to shoot blood, they're wearing their Terrifier 3 crew shirts. They're holding up plastic tarps. They're like, spray me, daddy. Let's do it. It's great.
And in addition, in the Screamboat cast, there's also Tyler Posey. How did he get involved in this project?
I did the majority of the casting, and we cast Jesse Posey early on. And as we were working with Jesse, actually, I don't know that I even knew who his brother was actually prior to then. But as we were working, we were realizing, oh, there is this one scene. We were maybe going to cut it, but then we were going to add it back in, and maybe we could adapt it and bring Tyler on. And Tyler wanted to support Jesse and support the film. And so it was just mostly because Jesse booked the part and was so great as Pete that, the conversation kept going. And once we got back to LA and Jesse was helping us shoot pickups, and Tyler came to set one day to hang out and see what his brother was up to. And it's just like one thing after another of like, no, let's put him in this scene and adapt it for him in that way.
That's so
and it was
cool.
great.
I love that. That's
cool.
And
I like that. It's almost like you would think maybe it'd be the other way around, like maybe because Tyler is in something and Jesse gets in, but I love that his brother got in first and then Tyler, got in. And so that's great. Yeah, because we noticed him in the movie. Obviously, listeners, you may remember him from like Teen Wolf and like tons of other stuff. But it was just a great addition to the cast. So you were talking about the blood and the kills, and we want to bring up one specific kill in the film because it was so creative and so brutal, and it made me squeal like a little girl. And I'm giving a major spoiler alert because I am going to describe it in detail, everyone. So if you don't want it spoiled, because it is just so, I love it. Anyway, okay, so basically what happens is Willie spots a cop hooking up with a girl, and she happens to be going down on him, and that is when Willie slices his dick off, and his groin is spraying her with blood everywhere, and you literally have the girl, she has the cut off penis in her mouth as she's being sprayed with blood everywhere. It was total craziness and hilarious. Now, Steven, who came up with this kill, and how did you go about filming all of this chaos?
I wish someone else could take credit for this one, but this is me, unfortunately. It was one of the first things I wrote for the movie. I do not know why. I don't know what that says about me. I don't know what my therapist would have to say about this. My mom liked the movie, so she's really the only one I was worried about. But yeah, I sort of started with this idea because the mouse is small, right? So you have to come up with these kills that involve either surprise or shock or something where someone's small. Like anytime Chucky is like holding a gun to someone's head, you're like, okay, if he fires a gun, he'd kill you. But like Amy always asks, why don't they ever just punt this little guy? So we had to come up with something that would happen. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be crazy if there was like a fountain of blood? And then you sort of extrapolating what would happen if we sliced off a penis, and then like he's dancing in the blood. What if he kicks it like a football? I mean, it really just it started with the phrase bloody blowjob, and then I just like, okay, what would happen there? And it all just sort of trickled down from that, or I guess sprayed down, whatever you want to call it. And then the process of filming it was really, really sort of it was a longer conversation, pun intended, than I thought it was going to be, because most of our, a lot of our kills, they have to be planned out really, really well. It's not like we can rehearse a fight and then just put multiple cameras in there and shoot it and hope we get the hits from the right angle, because some shots are the puppet, some shots are David, some shots involve prosthetics, some shots involve oversized prosthetics. Some shots involve an intimacy coordinator. Some shots involve nudity. Some shots involve blood spraying. So, I mean, we had more conversations about this fake penis than I think I've ever had about anything. And all of these brilliant, talented professionals are coming to these makeup meetings, and they're like, well, we have to make the regular size one, and then we have to make the big one. And then the actor's like, can it be a certain size? And then they're like, what color should it be? Who have we cast? But then if David has to kick it, then of course that means we need one that's appropriately to scale. So they made a giant one, and it has a name, and it's in a box somewhere. It was just craziness. And then when it came for casting, we had to find the right actor that wanted to do it. We made sure we ran the script by some different consultants and the female crew, and like, how can we execute this so it doesn't feel like we're objectifying this person? And it really all came down, I think, to the casting, because Rachel is so excited to come out and do the scene, and she's like, I've always wanted to be covered in blood in a movie, and the scene is super funny, and like, let's just go for it, let's just do it. And so we planned it out. We talked it through. We had, my God, so many meetings, meeting after meeting after meeting. And then in the edit room, it was the same deal, where we just wanted to make sure it was funny and that it was not objectifying anybody, or not, just so gross it was funny, but not like weird or make it sexual. Like, it's not sexual. It's supposed to be funny. And if it makes you squeal and it gives you a shock, then like, mission accomplished.
Oh, I mean, bravo.
I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, I maybe I'm just gross and perverted. There's so many things that stand out in this film, but that was a standout because it's something that I definitely couldn't get out of my mind.
No, I was like, oh dear,
the movie. But it was I think that the word is creative. Like it can be gross, but it was also very creative, and it was just kind of a standout scene. Allison, one thing we actually heard Steven mention on another podcast is that on your first or second day of filming, you were running on a dock in the rain and slipped and almost fell into the water. Now, can you tell us about this? Like, what happened? Were you okay?
No, I'm permanently, like, completely
scarred.
I am
That's
totally. So yeah, it was very early. I was pretty nervous. It was the first scene that we were doing that had some gravitas for me. It was the moment that I discovered the a policeman had been killed by the mouse. So it's this reveal, and I'm calling for help. And I remember I was, rehearsing it, all day, getting ready for this scene. And I was like, and I'm also with these crazy hitters in the acting. I mean, Jesse Posey, Jesse Cove, Michael, who plays the Tommy, who becomes captain at one point. These are amazing actors. So I was quite nervous to work with them. And Amy, of course, was there too. So all these great actors, and I think it was the first time I'd really worked with them. And I was like, I gotta really be good in this scene. I'm going to nail it. And it was raining. So it was a very, the deck was super wet, and the action was to sort of run to this mark, turn, and then spill out this mouse, this canyon. I saw this blood everywhere. So I was all amped up and I ran and hit the mark and slid and freaking, I mean, my ass hit the deck like that. And I think almost flew right off the boat. So I was more embarrassed than anything because I wanted so badly to just come to set with this great emotional scene. And I think the shock of that, failing miserably at that protected me from physical harm in that moment.
See, I would say you gave it 110% if you were running to the point of that. So I would turn it around and look at the other way and say you should be applauded on your dedication.
And Steven, does this footage still exist?
Oh, the footage exists. We have behind the scenes footage where she goes down, like, because in the close up you can only see her drop out of frame, but someone's filming BTS, so there is footage where she runs and she slips and she slides across the deck, and there's just one little thin rope between us and going into the water. And I remember Amy's like, "That's it, Allison's going in the drink. Let's go back to casting." It was funny. And the really funny part is Amy's in her, I mean, once we knew she was fine, but Amy's in her EMT outfit, and there's a new makeup artist that day who was like an assistant or something who thought Amy was a real EMT, and she's like, "Go help her." And Amy's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna let them handle it." And she's like, "You're the medical, go and help Allison." And she's like, "Oh no, this is just a costume."
She was very frustrated with me for a second. She's like, "Someone fell out there." I'm like, "Oh, I know. Well, let's stay out of the way."
Give him some space and let the first AD check on her. But she did great.
That EMT, let me tell you.
That's a very believable performance. That's why.
So
but Allison's great in that scene.
No, I can't. And Allison, do you give permission for that to be on like a bloopers reel?
I give full permission. Absolutely. I'm very clumsy as a person. So the stuff that honestly is obviously performances you get very nervous about, but I feel like I have much more training with how to handle a script and break it down and work on the emotional aspects of it. But when it comes to like hitting a puppet in the head with a broom, I freak out. I get so nervous. I like, oh my God, my palms get sweaty. Anything physical. I've already had people make fun of how I run in this movie. They're like, "Why are you running that way? You look stupid." I'm horribly unathletic and very physically awkward. So all that stuff. And there happens to be a lot of it in horror where you're hitting someone, you're punching someone, and you're like, and that is very nerve-wracking to me to do, is this sort of stunt related stuff, or even just walking around, running.
But to Allison's credit, her shoes were like custom designed, and they were not the most comfortable thing. I didn't know until the last day of shooting. She's like, "Oh yeah, my shoes don't fit." And I was like, "What do you mean your shoes don't fit? We've been on this boat for 23 days. What do you mean your shoes don't fit? You've been running, you've been climbing, you've been on the rooftop." She's wearing clogs, so that one's fine. But like, you're just doing all of this crazy stuff. Like, what do you mean your shoes don't fit? I mean, we could have done something about it. And she's like, I didn't want to say anything.
She made those shoes.
As her ankles are bleeding.
Right. I mean, it's like another horror movie in and of itself. Like when we're shooting a close up, just take them off. Oh my God. So more power to you, Allison.
Well, you both Amy and Allison were really great heroes in the film. Both of your fight scenes were very convincing. I didn't notice awkward running at all.
No.
I didn't notice. Maybe I'm an awkward runner.
Yeah, Matt's an awkward runner.
One thing, so I wanted to also talk about the animation that you have in the film when Willie's backstory is being told. So, Amy, what made you guys decide to include animation in the story? And was that all custom made? Like, I'm assuming you're not allowed to use any original Steamboat Willie animation, or can you? What are the rules on all of that?
That all came from your head. I remember when you decided that you wanted to do that. It was all custom made. And so I'll let you speak to that. But it was really cool because that monologue that Jarlath Conroy has that tells us all of that backstory, we didn't know that. I mean, it's a long monologue. So I don't know that you ever really thought that we're just going to hold on the character while they say it. I remember when you were like, that flashback could be what's it called? Rubber hose animation. And then, but once we got on set, Jarlath is brilliant. he is, I mean, I think, Allison, you can agree that day that Jarlath was there and he did his monologue, all of us, we were standing there watching him do it like, oh, we need to step up our game. He's so good. But we didn't anticipate that he was going to be able to start to finish do this like 4-page monologue. And he was like, I'd like to give it a try if I could. He's a theater actor. So of course he had it like fully memorized, ready to go. And he just did it. And I was like, whoa.
We're like, did Jarlath Conroy just
We are not worthy. Like,
did Jarlath Conroy just roll a tear for Steamboat Willie horror movie? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, he's there and he's like,
good.
And he just had one tear come down. And I'm like watching the monitor, like, oh my God, what movie are we making? We all gotta try harder, guys. This is
so at that point, the animation was going to go into that spot. For sure. But I think it ended up showing more of his performance than originally anticipated because he was so good. But then, yeah, you had the concept designer who designed the first look of of Steamboat Willie, the birthday brigade ladies. He designed their like wardrobe ideas and all of that. And then a few iterations like young Willie, young Minnie, other characters that were there. He had done some design work for that, so they drew that animation.
And then we handed it over to an animator to sort of bring it to life. We were allowed to use pieces from the movie, but all of the original Steamboat Willie animation, even though it's been scanned in high res, it's still kind of lo-fi. So we traced over everything to replicate the stuff that we were allowed to replicate, and then animated the pieces once Christian Cordella gave them to us. And we just wanted to make sure that we addressed the elephant in the room, which is the original Steamboat Willie, the fact that he was a cartoon character, as well as showcasing why our creature doesn't just look like a theme park mascot. Because obviously you can go see a real Mickey Mouse, and a real Steamboat Willie actually is in parades and stuff at the theme parks. So there is a big head, full-sized version of this that we could have just ripped off and be like, there he is, he's a killer now. But because I wanted him to be a creature that had a real story and had, is actually furry and had some mileage on him in terms of his aesthetic, we wanted to just make sure we drew that connection. Why doesn't he look like the Steamboat Willie cartoon? And pay homage to the fact that he's animated and this is where he started. And there's some cool Easter eggs in there. If you look closely, you can see an even earlier iteration of Steamboat Willie is in that sequence. If you look, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit is floating around in there.
Yeah, there's some good Easter eggs in that animation.
That's so cool. I mean, like, there's so many, well, and because moving into just the script, we were very impressed by just all of the references that were made. And I want to give a shout out to, because I know you co-wrote it with Matthew Garcia Dunn. So there's just so much wordplay, so many great Disney references. It felt like every line was purposeful. And, like you said, I think it's funny that anybody would assume that you guys have any sort of disdain for these characters, because if you can see how much of a love fest you have for Disney by how many references you put in there. We were just really impressed. But I do have to quote my favorite line in the movie was, "Our world is fucked, but Willie's world, it's the happiest place on earth."
Yeah, there you go.
It was just so perfectly put in there. But anyway, my question is, did you go into writing a script knowing you wanted to just throw in as many Disney references as possible, even outside the world of Steamboat Willie?
I knew I wanted to throw them in as winks and nods. And then once people because not everyone got some of the things that we were doing. And once the strip started getting more and more developed, and I'm like, well, here's a chance for a reference. Here's a chance for a reference. Here's a chance for a reference. There's a bunch that got cut out because sometimes, like, get on with the jokes. We need to keep the story moving. But then it sort of just turned into a game, and the crew started one-upping each other of like, oh, the art department put a Disney reference on a poster in the background. Oh, the soda is a Disney reference. Oh, the makeup put a hidden Willie on a dead person. So if you look closely, you can see the silhouette of 3 circles. So it really just evolved into this really fun thing. And it's something that honestly I did not expect, because I really think you kind of have to start. If you start by trying to make a movie for someone else, then you're going to fail them and you're going to fail yourself. So I kind of just made the film that I thought I would like. And I'm like, if anyone gets this Haunted Mansion reference, I'll be happy. So I just like sliding these little things in there. And sometimes you have to tell the cast like, oh, this is a reference to something. You should say it like Buzz Lightyear or this, whatever it is. But when we started going to the screenings and things, and people were getting those jokes. We did a screening at MegaCon, which is in Orlando, and there was a lot of people there, and a bunch of them were like, I work for the person you're not allowed to talk about. And I'm like, okay. And just to hear them laughing and just getting all of the jokes and getting all the references was like, oh, maybe this movie I made for me is for someone else. So yeah, it was just something that was just so much fun to do, because there's just this we just have this love for these characters and the brand and everything, from not just the movies but the cartoons and the parks and the characters and the corporate BS that they're currently getting flack for, like all of it. And just slowly but steadily working it in a way that's not just that's not, I don't want to say goofy, but that's not like silly, but is sort of just like a loving, poking jab at the thing, I think was a priority. And we did more than I thought we were ever going to do. And we're getting away currently with more than I ever thought we would. So mission accomplished, I guess.
That's awesome. Allison, something I really loved about Selena's character art in the film is that, we explore her relationship, not just with Pete, kind of the love interest, but it's also like an exploration, it feels like, with her place and love for the city of New York in general, and if she feels like she belongs in it. What aspects of Selena, or if that was one of them, did you identify with most?
I mean, that is a huge one. I think any young artist who moves to New York to pursue their dream can relate to this character. It really does touch on the kind of the abrasiveness of the city in a way. And New York is a really wonderful place, but I think many people, it's a love-hate. It's a city that welcomes everyone, but it's up to you to kind of make of it what you will and build your life there and chase what you want unapologetically. And she really does have this sort of moment, at the end, where even after everything, it's still, you're still not quite sure what she decides to do. And I really think that's so real, because so many people go to New York and stay for many, many years, but they leave. And that's not necessarily quitting or giving up on the ideology of New York, but it is recognizing that, you kind of come and do what you need to do and get what you need to get out of it, or become who you need to become. And you can take that with you wherever you go. And New York is always going to be, I just left New York myself. I was there for almost a decade. And it's someplace I still consider home. But it's also, I feel like a New Yorker in LA. I definitely, and I meet other people from Brooklyn, it's like, we have this sort of understanding. And yeah, I really do love that it's such a love letter to New York, because you are always a New Yorker once you're a New Yorker. And it's less about the city. Sometimes it's more about what, your philosophy on life and how you approach going for what you want.
It's so true. Like, we both lived in New York City at different times of our lives, but it just didn't, at least for me, it just didn't work.
I loved seeing it. I was like, oh, I remember that.
I lived there for a year and a half because I wanted to move, because my family's all there, and I'm like, oh, now we'll all be a happy family in New York City. And I'm such a Californian. It just didn't work for me. So like, anytime someone kind of struggles with whether they belong in New York, I'm like, I know that struggle,
yes.
But I left.
But I was only there for a measly 2 years. And Allison, you had the final battle with Willie, and you dressed up as Minnie. Did you get to keep that costume or your sketchbook?
No, it's both. The costume is, I'm not sure where that costume is, but I didn't get to keep either of those things. I assume it's a student. I love that. But that costume was awesome. We really, like, that was sewn onto my body like nobody's business. I felt like Olivia Newton-John in the final scene of Grease with her leather pants sewn on her body while she's singing. But it was, and then I had the harness underneath my dress as well from hanging off the side of the boat. I don't know if we're talking spoilers, I guess, but it was that costume was super. I love that costume. It was hilarious and also sweet and fun. And I felt really, I was like, yeah, this is an awesome, like, the final girl outfit is so iconic in horror, and it's always very sexy. And this was like sexy, but like still a little bit of a comedy. Like it still was like, it's like, you know, it's sexy, but it's got a little bit of goofiness to it.
It's
and
fun. I mean, it's sexy and in a perfect
Exactly.
on-brand way for the film. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like because
Yes.
it has the mini attributes. So yeah, we loved it. And Steven, if you have it,
Wear it.
Wear it, Steven.
Oh yeah. Oh, I do. Oh yeah, I do. And we just had an anniversary, so Amy will be wearing it again very soon.
Oh, that's great. Wait, so Amy, where and when did Screamboat have its very first premiere? Like in what city, or was it at a film festival? And what was it like, I guess for all of you, but the question's for you. I'm seeing it for the very first time with an audience on a big screen.
The very first time we showed it to an audience on a big screen was not necessarily considered our premiere.
Because it was unfinished.
It was unfinished. So we called it a fan screening. And it was in Las Vegas at the Days of the Dead horror convention, but we showed it at a Brendan Theater, which was this beautiful theater. And we drove down to Vegas. Steve was still reviewing the movie in the car on the way there.
I was working on it at.
He had been trying to finish sections, and then he would send me the section and I would watch it. We did that until I think like 6 a.m.
2 or 3. No, we did it till. Yeah,
maybe. I don't know.
Our
Anyway,
visions, our memories blurry for obvious reasons.
Whatever. Some crazy point in the morning, somewhere between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., we decided we are going to sleep for a few hours. We're going to get on the road. We're going to drive this disc of the movie to Las Vegas to show it to a sold out 175 person audience. We are insane people. So we drove down. He's watching the movie
under a blanket
so that the glare wasn't happening, to make sure that the full disc was going to play and that we didn't miss something insane, to show it to the first test audience. And we were both so incredibly nervous, just so incredibly nervous. Allison came and met us. Jesse Cove, Jesse Posey, both were there. David was there. So it was all of their first time seeing the movie as well. So not only are we showing it to a first audience, but we were also showing it to these actors who had put just blood, sweat, and tears into their performances, 6-7 months prior. And also to an audience of like super fans who were stoked about the movie. And
we hadn't even had a trailer out yet at this point. So they don't even know what they're going to get.
There was nothing. We took photos on a red carpet. There was a step and repeat. They gave out playing cards of the movie that had each of our characters on it, and posters and this whole thing. And then we're like, I hope the movie plays.
We hope it plays.
The entire time the movie was playing, I was like on pins and needles waiting for something crazy to happen, but the audience was awesome. They laughed at all the jokes. They all laughed at the same time. It was like they were laughing in unison. It wasn't like a trickle of laughter. It was like, oh, the joke hit, and they would erupt in laughter. It was like such an exhilarating experience. It was so much fun.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was.
You just took us on a journey.
I know. I was feeling your stress as you were telling that story, but
I was a lot less gray before that day. You know what it's like driving to Vegas?
Hate that.
So you slept for 2 hours, and so you're driving to Vegas, right? Except it's 10 o'clock in the morning with what you believe to be an unfinished movie, and you're watching it and reviewing it in the car while you drive, knowing whether it's done or not, it is showing in 6 hours. Why did we do this? I still don't know.
But it all turned out okay.
Yeah, it did. It turned out great. It was such a fun, Allison, do you agree? Like that first time we showed it was like, it was crazy fun. We had premieres. We had a New York premiere. We had an LA premiere.
We did other fan screenings.
We did other fan screenings, but that fan screening was like, it was something special.
That was so much fun. And honestly, I feel like the second time you watch it, it's almost better. Like the first time for me, I was so nervous that I have memory loss. But seeing it in Atlanta, because we also showed it there at Days of the Dead, it was a totally different experience. It was in a conference room with like chairs that were kind of put in there, and it was like just a totally different vibe. And it was a really late screening. I think it was like 11 or 10:30 p.m. But it was that one to me really stuck out too, because it was just such a vibe, like a party vibe. People were hilariously loud. Like they loved it. They were just ape shit for it. And at that point I had seen it already. So I was able to like breathe and just watch it and enjoy it and not like, be like, oh, I don't remember that. I don't remember saying that, or, how you hyperventilate when you watch things that you do. But yeah, no, the pre-screenings were all so much fun. It was such a riot to watch the hardcore fans really, love it and enjoy it and get it right away and really just have a blast with it.
So the film ends in a way that, very much sets things up for a sequel, but then that there also seemed to be room for a sequel to The Mean One. So, Steven, without holding you to anything today, which do you think has the highest probability of occurring in the near future? Either you making a sequel to The Mean One, you making a sequel to Screamboat, or you doing a new horror film based on a different IP?
Ooh. We have this black backdrop up, so you can't see the answer to that question. Fully. But what I can say is we loved making The Mean One, but Screamboat, because of the characters so close to our hearts, and because we just had so much fun making it, and people have been so receptive to the movie, I think there's lots of stories left to tell on the Staten Island Ferry with Steamboat Willie. Whether you're talking about the ending of the movie or just like the response to it and people's connection to it. I mean, I've had never in my career have I had the projectionist come out of the screening and say, thank you for making this movie. So, I mean, it really was such a special experience. And we planted some really cool things. Excuse me. We planted some really cool elements in the movie that, okay, we get it. You want to have your piece. The cat's trying to get in the mic. We definitely set some cool stuff up. But yeah, I think there are more stories left to tell in the Screamboat universe.
Okay, I will take that cryptic answer as that we might be seeing a sequel and things. And so I wanted to be, before we wrapped up, I wanted to ask each of you, if there are any other projects that you're working on you can tell us about. It sounds like that's about all we're going to get out of Steven. And
right.
And moving on, Amy, are you working on this new project with Steven? Do you have any other projects that you're working on you can tell us about?
Yes, I am. I may or may not be working on his theoretic, next project, hypothetical next project.
Potential
so
next
yes,
project.
that definitely. And then we have another sort of horror comedy mashup kind of movie that we have been shopping around, pitching around. We have an awesome script for it. And I hope that becomes one of the next things or something from our production company in the next year that is very much happening. So
awesome. And Allison,
horror
how
comedy.
About you? Could there be any more horror in your future, or is there anything you're working on right now?
I am working on something in about a month in New York, but it's a drama, and it's totally different. But to me, horror and drama have always been very close. I feel like they stem from the same place of loss and sort of, charting the unknown and grief. So I do find those to be related. But as far as horror, I'm not sure what the next chapter holds, but I'm excited, and I love the genre so much. So I'd love to do another horror.
All three of you, your enthusiasm is contagious.
Yeah. And
we had so much fun making this movie. We had so much fun watching the movie and talking about the movie. I mean, even the worst day on set is better than, a mediocre day in an office. And our office is the freaking Staten Island Ferry, and our coworkers Steamboat Willie. Like, it doesn't get better than that.
And because we put it together and we did the casting and we did the hiring, we like everyone we work with. So we like each other. It makes it so much more fun.
No, that is great. I love that. And who knows if there's a sequel? I know two characters that could still be around for that sequel. No, not you. I'm talking about Amy and Allison. Tim makes it about himself.
I was like, it's not me, right?
Talking about Selena and Amber. Yeah. We have one final question, and Steven, I don't know if you remember this, but we asked this to every single person we we interview. And maybe we don't need all three of them to answer, but if anyone thinks of something, we'll take this as an answer. But it's the thing we do. It's how we end every single interview. The question is, what is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on Screamboat that you have never told in another interview, at a convention Q&A, to another podcaster? And remember, we've listened to your other podcast.
A friend you were texting.
Right. So just one thing any of you can tell us about your experience working on Screamboat you have never told before. And it doesn't have to be like...
It doesn't have to be scandalous.
It doesn't have to be scandalous unless you want it to be.
Yeah,
But it
I
can
have
just
one.
be something.
Scandalous would be better.
Amy
I mean,
has
Scandalous would be better. I see. I like the way Steven's thinking. Scandalous would be better.
Oh,
but
I don't have a scandalous
no, it
one.
doesn't have to be. But Allison, you said you have one?
I would say,
oh, okay.
I don't, yeah, I don't, I do not. I would say a woman's heart is a deep ocean of secrets. Per Titanic. There's definitely, all sorts of things, but Amy, go for it. Go for it, Amy.
I want to hear more about what Allison was trying to say.
Jeez, what is
Me too.
No, mine's just a little Easter egg you could look out for. There is a moment in the movie that, because Steven and I did so much of the pickups just ourselves, the two of us, there's a moment in the movie where one character is meeting his demise and his legs are in the shot and they're mine. So it's me standing on my head with that character's outfit on. They're my legs. So it's a little spoiler, but I don't think we've said that to anybody.
That's hilarious.
I love it.
I got one that's salacious. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, go
Yours
ahead.
is good.
Thank you.
Allison, yours was fine. What I can say that I haven't told anybody is I feel really confident somebody had sex on that ferry while we're shooting. I don't know for sure, but I feel pretty confident.
To make it salacious.
Even though, yeah, the director said it's got to be salacious.
Okay.
I think you're right. I'll second that.
Okay. I agree that happened, but
I feel pretty confident. We can't know for sure. And obviously, this wouldn't be the first time because that boat was in service for 2 decades. So
Something was in
others.
service. Wow. Wait, and you're saying it's so hard.
I
not
have
to like-
no follow-up.
I just
feel
gonna say,
confident.
do you know, we asked this question and there have been some people that have told us details they probably shouldn't have. And then I always keep digging and Tim's like,
I'm always
Matt,
like,
stop. This is all I'll say. When you say that, do you mean like a bystander or someone involved with the production?
I will not comment further on it. I'm just saying we were there for 35 days.
25 days.
When did we start prepping?
Oh.
Point is, we were there for an extended period of time, and I feel pretty confident that happened.
Wow. Well, you know what? Like, hey,
I'll never tell.
people are having fun. And what was your quote, Allison? A woman's heart is as deep as her
An
secrets.
It's a deep ocean of secrets.
Titanic. A woman's heart is a deep ocean of secrets, famously.
I'm going to have to use
Wow,
that.
Allison, I need a bumper sticker on my car.
It's a cute crew. What can everyone was very cute on that. The crew and cast were super cute. So,
Oh my God.
Yeah, the
like
Posey
Steven
brothers.
said,
The Posey brothers.
Yeah.
Well,
They're
and
hideous.
let the record also show that people break onto this boat as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it happened with anyone in our employ or that worked on the
Hey,
film.
I'm not making any assumptions.
Whoever, love is love.
That's
We're
right.
not here to judge.
We're not here to
just here
judge.
spill the
No,
secret.
not at all. Well, look, we've had so much fun chatting with all of you. I'm so happy that we got to reconnect with you, Steven, because congratulations to all of you on this movie. And like we said, all the press that we've seen, you can totally tell how much just effort, passion, love went into it, and so I'm glad that we got to talk to you in more detail just to hear all the specifics that people might not know about how much work goes into every little decision based on a film like this. So thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. We can't wait to see what all of you do next.
Yes, congratulations. It's not easy making movies.
Thank you.
Thank
this
you.
was not a hard one to make. It was not an easy one to make, but we had so much fun doing it and do it again in a heartbeat because, you could see we loved making it and we loved the reaction and connecting with people. And if enough people see this one, then maybe we get to make more. You never know.
Yeah. Well, again, wishing you all the best of luck. We hope to stay in touch. And thanks again for your time today.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after-show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.